Hello and welcome to the Collective Conspiracy Show, another edition. Today we should be joined by Matthew, but he hasn't showed yet, so we're going to give him a few minutes or so to join us. If he doesn't show, it's okay. I've got a backup plan, so no need to worry. It's a shame, really. I haven't really had much luck lately with guests coming on. But we have got a few good shows lined up coming forward. On the 22nd, show regular Andrew will be back, and we will be talking Pizzagate. It's a very, very sensitive topic. So I do kind of give forewarning to that it will be discussing a lot of stuff around paedophilia. Matthew, you're saying you don't have any link. I emailed it to you yesterday. If you just want to go onto the email that I sent, you can click that link. Okay, hopefully Matthew can join. Yep, so it will be touching on paedophilia and the elite. So it's quite a heavy subject, like I say. So just be warned for that one. And then the week after, there'll be an immediate show the week after, so there won't be a 2-week gap. And on the 29th, we will be I will have a guy called David, who's coming on to talk about reverse speech. And reverse speech is a fascinating subject. I suggest you look into it. It's really interesting, and it could be something that I emailed it you yesterday, Matthew. We spoke, I think it was yesterday. I only sent you two. Yeah, so it could be a good show with David discussing reverse speech. Essentially, the idea behind it is he reviews people talking. So I think he's doing the Meghan and Harry speech at the minute, and then listens to it back, and essentially reverses what they're saying to pick up any subconscious words that they might be talking. And the thought process behind what he's doing is that their subconscious is actually talking what they're thinking, despite what they're actually physically saying. So they could be lying, but you can catch them in truth if you reverse what they're saying. It's quite an interesting. Just my name, Matthew, Kieran Woodhouse. Like I say, yes, sent it you yesterday. Matthew, just for now, just we'll postpone, mate. It's fine. Just in case by the time you come on, time's ticking. So I'll drop you another email, and I'll get you one again, Matthew. So don't panic, don't worry. But yeah, I'll email you again. So yeah, hello to everybody. Bit of confusion there, obviously, with Matthew getting the link, but we will get him on at some point if it's not tonight. So thank you for joining me on a moderately warm Monday night. The weather is turning for the good, thank God. And hopefully soon we can start sitting in our gardens and enjoying the garden. So I'm just going to give Matthew another couple of minutes to find my email to see if he can come on. If he can't, that'll be the shame. Karen's sent it him again. Great, that should be good. Right, so should be on any second. I'm hoping we can discuss crop circles tonight. It's not a topic I've ever really touched on, despite talking about UFOs quite regularly. Something I've always wondered, actually. Something I've always wondered is actually are crop circles related to ETs? People always assume they are, but it could be an interesting thought process to see if it's not. Karen and Matthew, it's fine. I have got a backup plan. We'll sort it out, Karen. We'll do a show next week or something with Matthew. It's fine. I want to get on because I'm just bumbling. I'm talking rubbish. So yeah. So hang on. No, device is not. Is he here? Great. Okay, here we go.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
How are you?
Not too bad. Sorry,
Very good.
I was looking for you, like 10 minutes before the show, and I was looking for emails, and I was like, what the hell was it coming up under? I don't know. I typed in Kieran, both spellings of Kieran, and it
There's about
wouldn't
100
find the
spellings.
email. Yeah, it wouldn't
Um,
find the email. So yeah,
no, it's fine. It's fine. Guys, I'm glad you're on.
yeah.
So we haven't obviously had time clearly to talk before this. So I was
Hmm.
just saying there. What I'd like to talk about is crop circles, if you can.
Sure.
It's something I've never touched on before. And I've always wondered what the connection is to aliens, because people always assume that they're aliens. And I guess my first question to you would be, when you started getting into that, is that the thought process that you went down, that it was ET related?
Well, I was a bit of a believer going into it to start with, and I'd seen weird stuff. Not necessarily that it was alien, but I'd seen strange lights on the side of hills, and I was certainly chasing down UFO phenomena. I think that the problem is that, from what I've experienced with people that believe it's aliens doing it, is they're kind of jumping to conclusions because they don't know a lot about it, but they go. It's a bit like that meme that goes around. It's like pyramids. We don't know how they were made. Must be alien. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so you can apply it to anything. Like, my computer's broken. Must be the aliens. And it's like, the trouble is, I think there's a scientific precept which probably should apply to a lot of things, which is like Occam's razor, which is like the most obvious explanation is probably the truth.
Yeah.
So I don't see that there's a good reason for people to be jumping to the conclusion that it's aliens, especially considering that a lot of people have come out and shown how these can be made. But then, to kind of get around that, some of these crop circle proponents, the ones who believe in it very heavily, they turn around and they say, oh, yeah, but there's microwave damage. You can't do that. And there's special energies and you can't do that. And I'm like, but they're appearing, if what you're saying is true, they're appearing in the circles we've created. So therefore, why are they appearing in man-made circles?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the weird thing.
I think what you've touched on there is quite interesting, because it seems to be the answer to I find that most people that believe in aliens tend to not really believe in a god, and people often mock those that believe in God, that they give the answer for everything to God.
Yeah.
He works in mysterious ways. If you can't explain what something is, it's God. And it seems to be the same with aliens. Some people can be, the other end of the spectrum, but pretty much the same. If they can't explain what something is, then the aliens did it. And I think it's an easy way out of actually trying to explain some phenomena and not really investigating what it possibly could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's called armchair research, and I do see a lot of it, And I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinions, but I get people sort of like telling me, with like a big sort of like wavy finger, you don't know what you're talking about, and it's like, well, actually, I'm probably one of the most uniquely qualified to talk about crop circles there is, because I make them. So there aren't many of us out there doing it, and we know which ones we're making. So, it's like when people tell me you don't know what you're talking about, it's like, well, actually, I think, if you could reverse that round and say, well, I'm sorry, I don't think you know what you're talking about. But, yeah.
Okay, so if you obviously you tend to know which ones you're making, and so you're in the know there. And
Yeah.
what happens when something is reported, a crop circle's reported that you're not aware of? Does it instantly kind of spark an interest?
Well, I mean, it doesn't stay unknown for very long. I mean, somebody will. This is back in the day. I don't take any photos of crop circles anymore. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
gone out of it and starting to do urbex stuff now. But I mean, there was a period between 90, 93, 94, something like that, up to 2000. And then I did carry on a little bit after that. So you're talking what, like good. How many years have I been doing it? It's got until about last year. So I mean, you'll be talking like 20+ years involved in the subject. You sorry, I'm kind of going off track now. What was there was a
Oh,
point of
I
telling
was kind of just asking, like,
Sorry.
if a crop circle pops up that you
Yeah,
know that hasn't been man-made, shall we say?
that's right. Yes,
What is
yeah.
what's your approach to that? How do you?
Yeah, well, I mean, because I know all the people who make them, it's just a case of tracking down who probably made it. I mean, a couple of phone calls and you'll sort of find out, oh, it was these guys.
Yeah,
Now, because people don't want to get sort of stumbled across, and people who make them are a little bit paranoid that even possibly somebody in their own team might blab that they're doing something tonight, and then somebody will be out looking for them and try to catch them. So I mean, people are very secretive. Even I, when I go out to make a circle, I won't tell people where we're going to do it, even the people on my team. I'll just say, I'll see you later on, it's all sorted, just see you, and then when we get them there, you say, right, this is the design, and then it's like the last thing you say is where it's going to be. So anyway, that's why the paranoia is there from the people who make them. But it's only a couple of phone calls you need to make, really, and sometimes you can just literally look at the circle. If you've been heavily involved in it like I have, you can kind of tell a style. Some teams are messy execution, and some teams are absolutely perfect execution. Doesn't always work that way, because sometimes the crop can make it look messy when a good team is working, so it doesn't always work out that I know who's been doing what. But generally, if I look at a certain design, I'll go, oh, he was out last night, right? Cool. Just by looking at it, oh, he was out, was he? Okay. You get to know the designs and the people involved, and
Okay, and is there anything that I'll get onto the extraterrestrial side in a second, but I'm actually quite interested in the reasons behind why we would do it. When you're designing, is there any particular reason you pick that certain design that you're doing?
Well, this is the weird thing about the coincidences that started happening to myself and others. We would often get the inspiration to go out and do a certain design, and it just seemed like other people were kind of pre-cognitive awareness of that design. They were having a premonition. That's the word I was looking for. They were having like a premonition that design would appear. We didn't even know this, and then we would go out and do a design that they were waiting for, and they would get very excited. I mean, there was even a Japanese chap who was sitting with a group meditating one night, asking for a design. And we went out and did the exact design he was asking for. And then he went really like, whoa, this is too much. But because he was a researcher, I tend to kind of approach researchers and say, look, there's more going on than meets the eye here. And even though it's people, all I'm going to say is, like, look at the design. We don't know you. Nobody's told us that. And you're saying that you were asking for that to happen in a meditation session. And that's happened to me twice. One time I was in my house and I was just sitting, not doing anything, and I literally got the urge. It was like a light went on in my head, like, oh, I must go out and make a crop circle. I really feel like I must do this. And I'm kind of a bit of a lazy sort of person a lot of the time. It's got to be something that sort of like really stirs me up, And late at night, I mean, I'm going to be thinking, nah, there's no way I'm going to get a team together. And I would think, nah, it's just not going to happen. Like, I mean, it's wishful thinking. Or if it would happen, it wouldn't be anything good, that sort of thing. So just leave it there. But of course, this light's gone on in my head. It's like, you must go out and make a circle. And I'm like, that's a stupid thought. Well, I'm going to reject that thought. But the thought's kind of like, no, I'm not going to be rejected. It's like, go out and make a circle. And I'm like, okay. And then, so I say to myself, well, okay, I'll go out and do it. But I'll have to use a tripod and weight it down, so that it can actually act as if there was a person standing there holding the tape, so I can create the circle. And I created a 6-fold petal design. And whilst I was there near Avebury in Wiltshire doing this, I heard people playing on a guitar nearby and singing. That's what it sounded like anyway, which was interesting. And so I finished this design. It was fairly small, but it was correct. It was technically correct. The geometry was correct. Then I went away, and as we often do, we sort of like ring around them. So like, anybody on about anything been found or what's going on? And somebody said, oh yes, there's a big buzz about this crop circle that appeared near Avebury. And I, of course, you play kind of dumb, like, oh, what's that then, And they were saying, well, there were people who were meditating nearby asking for that design to appear, and it appeared within a very short distance of them. Turned out I knew that one of the people there, and I contacted them and I said, oh, I heard this story about, you asking for the design. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, tell me how you did that then. And they were like, well, we were meditating on this design, and we were all sitting there, and we had the image. We'd all been given a copy of the image, and we were all visualizing this image. And I was like, right, so who was playing the guitar and singing then? And they were like, no, it's nobody. And I'm like,
wow.
That's weird, because it's almost like as if you're being warned by something there's some sort of mechanism whereby people telepathically pick up the ideas to go and make the certain designs. But whatever it is that's putting those ideas in our heads, whether it's me to you telepathically or it's something else,
Yeah.
there seems to be this element of protection from being caught, because we've been able to do things right underneath people's noses. And even though it seems lunacy to try it, it's like something kind of wills us on, like, that's okay, do that. And there's been other times when it's felt like it's not right to do that,
Right.
and that we should not do it and go away. And I've actually fought that feeling and sort of thought, no, I'm going to carry on doing it. And something happened which was quite sort of scary, because balls of light came on in the field and chased us out of the field. So it seems like there's something influencing us to do this. And I wonder whether or not it's something akin to what people would have been doing many years ago with Stonehenge and putting up stones, because something was making contact, something was showing them something, and then they would try and represent what they'd been shown with putting it in the ground with stones and things like that. There would be a great memorial for whatever it was. Just makes me think, actually, because you hear about these ancient sites and people say, oh, how did they know this angle for the stars and the distances, and how did these people know this? They were primitive people. And I'm like, well, if somebody put it in their heads, there's your answer. Because people say, well, there would be much more evidence of advancement in society back then, and how could they know all this but then be living in mud huts and not having that? And I just think, well, maybe they're picking it up from somewhere.
So what's interesting here is that you're actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm picking up is you're saying that it actually isn't extraterrestrials doing this. It's mainly humans that are responsible. However, there's this kind of telepathic link potentially where the extraterrestrials are becoming involved.
Yes, yeah, that's
not an angle I've ever heard.
I know it's not something a lot of people have heard, really. And the people who research crop circles, let me just center up my camera a little bit so I'm in the center of the screen a bit more. The people who tell you about crop circles, they jump cartwheels to try and hide the stories that the circle makers tell them, and we're more than happy to kind of share what we know with the researchers, but the researchers are like, no, not interested, and they call bullshit on it. But I mean, I've tried to work with many researchers over the years, and I've taken them out to watch when we make a circle, and we've even talked about the fact that others claim there is weird energy in the circles we make, and we say, well, we aren't doing it. So if it is there, it's something that's been put in there after we finished. So maybe we're part of something, where the creation team is one part of the circle, and then whatever energy comes down, that's put there by somebody or something else later on. So
what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of these extraterrestrials, telepathically telling you or making you think you're having your own decision to go out and make these crop circles?
Well, I'm not saying specifically, because I don't know that it's extraterrestrials. I mean, I'm interested in extraterrestrials, but I don't know that it is. I just know that, it happens. That's all I know, is that the messages come. There's no very, it's just an idea, it's like an idea forms in your mind of a design, and you're sketching it, and then you might modify it. And of course, you'll think that all these ideas are your ideas, and then you go out into the field, like has happened once. We went out, made a design, and there was another team in the field as well, and they were working just one tram line away from us, and we were working on elongated designs, and the head of our snake we did was pointing right at the tail of the other crop circle. Just weird stuff. There was an instance where two teams went out on the same night and did the same design in different parts of the country. Wow. And I mean, you're talking about, it was so much the same. It was spirals, but it was so much the same that you have to say, like, nah, that's not a coincidence. And they swear they didn't tell each other, that they were doing this. So I believe in, that magic is out there. But I mean, once people hear the sort of, it's people claiming it, and they sort of, they shut down a little bit, and I kind of I can see why they might do that, because I think you were saying before I came on, and you hit the nail on the head with this, is people would rather believe in aliens, but they don't like the idea of God and that sort of stuff. So they don't like spirituality and the life after death and all that sort of stuff. But they would prefer to believe in aliens.
Yeah,
And when it comes to the humans, it's almost like as if we're a dirty word, like, oh,
yeah,
us humans, we're not worthy, but gods might be worthy and aliens might be worthy, but not humans. So when humans come along and say they make crop circles, everybody goes, "Oh, I don't want to know that. That's rubbish. That's bloody rubbish. Oh, get this guy out of here. I want aliens."
I
That's
think
what. Yeah.
I think also it's possible that we don't believe that we have that ability. I think we've lost that, and I think we're actually told by society, that someone mentioned in the comment section that we all have this telepathic connection. It's just lost, and I think it's lost through things that we eat and things that we drink and things that we're told, and we believe that we don't have it essentially. So when it comes to having this telepathic, I guess, ability to talk to your fellow crop circle creators and go out and make the same thing as someone else the other side of the country, it's actually harder to believe that than it is to believe that some little green men came down or some guy on a cloud, exists. And you're absolutely right. We have become this dirty word, but I think we just devalue ourselves as a species, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we are, which is effectively consciousness, everything that there ever is and will be. But we don't give ourselves that credit. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other night about BBC documentaries with animals, and they were saying animals have a very sophisticated communication system, and it was like, and I'm thinking, no, they don't. And they said, humans are obviously very advanced, but now we are kind of learning that animals have advanced communication systems. It's like, well, it might be like, I'm in pain, watch out, there's a predator. But these are just like sort of basic noises, a vocabulary of like about 7 things basically.
Yeah.
And to compare that animals may be in some way on par with humans in terms of intelligence is just nonsense. I think it's absolute nonsense. But the BBC were peddling this on a documentary the other night, and I'm like, where are these documentaries going? It's fair enough to say we're learning more about animal communication, and they may be slightly more complicated than we thought in the past, and that's fair enough. But to make out, that a horse that can't learn, that doesn't know how to jump a fence in order to get to the hay on the other side, it's like, well, it's like pouring perfume on a pig. I mean, giving language to a horse, but not giving it intelligence. He would just be looking at the hay across the thing, going, "Oh my God, I wish I could get that hay. My God, that hay! If only I knew how to do it. What is this strange thing in front of me? I think they call it a fence. I don't know what to do. Oh, wouldn't it be amazing if I could just get that hay?" And I'd just be standing there all day with a vocabulary, just going, "I don't know what to do." So it's this whole concept of like, and I think again, it's almost like a sort of it's putting down humans, saying like, the animals of. They've got a right to be here, and we don't necessarily have a right to be here. And I hear a lot with this great reset. People saying like, oh, there shouldn't be so many people on the planet, and it's like, well, there are, and there's not much you can do unless you want to starve everyone to death or kill them off. There's not much you can do about that. So.
Yeah. I often think that. I mean, I'm obviously an animal lover. Not a vegetarian though. I eat meat. But yeah, you're right. I've been looking into this great reset thing, and I think part of what you've mentioned there with the BBC essentially dumbing down the human race, and it's happened systematically throughout. I think throughout the world, really. It's happened in schools. Lowering the grade system. It's happened with the TV that we now see. Things rubbish like Made in Chelsea and all that kind of crap. And it's just this dumbing down of society, essentially, to make us devalue ourselves and to not really think or consider how powerful we actually can be as an individual and as a collective species. And I think that is a conspiracy in itself. And the Great Reset, as you say, there are 7 billion people on the planet. Tough shit. And I guess they will try and do things about it, such as war and famine, and maybe they can do things that way to get rid of us. But I mean, is that something that you think I don't know your thoughts really on the elite or the people that control the world, but do you think that there is this kind of plan to try and bring the population down? Going slightly off topic from crop circles.
No, I do actually believe that, and it's a bit insidious. And people say, "Oh, that's just a conspiracy theory because you can't prove anything." And it's like, well, just look at the way the world is. Just look how things are. And you could say, well, oh, it's just greed that we don't cure all these diseases, and it's like they've come out with they came out with 200 million for vaccines, but they gave 38 billion to a company to create an app which didn't work. Is that taking money out of the public purse to give to their mates? Because that's a lot of money. Or is this for black budget stuff that you're just underwriting as something else? Because this shit does not happen in a normal world,
No.
where it's level playing field and people are playing by the rules, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're in the realms of like David Icke here, where he actually say like, it's an absolute bloody insanity, How does a company get 38 billion for something that should just cost $1 million to put together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. My local pub has designed an app that you can now order takeaway beer on and takeaway pizza on, obviously, while they're closed. And it's a brilliant app, and it does everything that it needs to do. And you can't help but think, I think he spent about 500 quid on designing it. And you've got 38 billion on this app. And then you've got the NHS who've just had however many pence pay rise. And you think, where's the justice there? There is no justice, and yet people just sit back and accept it, and it's so easy for them to pass these little brown envelopes to their friends, and as you say. But I'm interested what you touched on, the black projects there, because that's not something that people often think. People often think, yes, it is just backhanders for their friends, but it is possible that the money is being funneled into something else in order to fund another project completely unrelated.
There was $1 trillion went missing during the Iraq war, or was it the Afghanistan war? They just came out and they just said, "Oh, by the way, we don't know what we did with $1 trillion."
That was September the 10th. That was September the 10th, and then on September the 11th, the Pentagon, where the part of that housed that particular area with all the paperwork, got hit supposedly by a plane, and no evidence to show now where that $1 trillion has gone.
I mean, the truth might be stranger than fiction, to be honest. And I mean, I'm a big believer that was an inside job, because you had a political candidate was there in NORAD telling them to stand down during the incidents where they could have got planes in the air and they could have intercepted them. I mean, we live in a pretty screwy world, and I'm just happy to know there's something more out there than just what we see, because I mean the world as it is, I don't see these politicians and these people as role models. They're not role models. They're anti-role models. They're everything that we shouldn't be wanting to be like, because I mean they're just cheats, liars, and thieves, and they're pretending to be all good and all.
But where does that happen? I mean, at what point can you picture you've got a son or a daughter and they say, "Dad, I want to be Prime Minister when I grow up," and he goes, he obviously has to go to Eton and all that kind of stuff, and then he eventually becomes Prime Minister. At what point throughout that stage does he become this corrupt guy that we see on TV all the time? Because essentially it's the same puppet, that the agenda rolls on. It doesn't matter who's in power, whatever they sell you to get the votes. It doesn't matter who wins, the government always get in. So at what point do these people sell their souls?
Well, there's selection processes all the way along, and I mean, in universities they'll be looking for people to become candidates for working in the intelligence services, working in high-ranking roles in the military, and they'll just bypass, all the sort of like training and sort of like being in the low levels of the military. They just jump straight to the top. So it is the old boys club, the old the network of people, and then you've got the secret societies, you got all that, and I think the trouble is that people kind of, muggle their way along through life, just thinking, oh, this is the way that life's been set out for me. This is all I've got, and it's like they're not too adventurous with the way they'll kind of do things, and everyone knows that most of the people who succeed in business are usually quite ruthless, and they don't always pay people well.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way they get rich is by standing on your back.
Yeah, that's right.
And especially in the United Kingdom, where we've got some really screwed up ideas about society, housing, money, tax, everything. And it's like there's the haves and then there's the have-nots.
Yeah.
And people say, well, but it's not fair. Why can't I be like them? And it's like, well, you're not a Freemason. You're not part of that elite network. You haven't shook the right hands. And then, anybody who steps out of line, it's like the old saying, anyone who steps out of line gets battered back into place,
That's right. And you mentioned David Icke, who coined the phrase that we've out-sheep the sheep. And, we don't need a sheepdog anymore because we keep each other in line. And I think what you've just said there is absolutely spot on, because when somebody tries to, puts their head above the parapet and says, hang on a minute, this isn't fair. This isn't what should be going on. And did you know that Prime Minister's a paedophile? And it's not the police or the law that shoots them down. It's their next door neighbour, it's their brother, it's their mum, it's their wife who tells them, shut up, you're a nutter. And we've begun to police ourselves essentially, and again, I come back to the devaluing ourselves, and we're taught to be grateful and to accept what you've got. And you've got a cardboard box in a shop doorway, well, that's the card you were given. Learn to live with it, and that's what we're taught essentially as a society. This kind of class system, and why should the royals have all the money that they have? I didn't vote for them, and why should they be where they are? And that's a fair question to ask. But the amount of people that just say, "Well, it is what it is, isn't it?" And I just think, what in a way, I envy them, because I think, well, ignorance is bliss, and it must be lovely to wake up not really worried about anything like that. But at the same time, that they must have this yearning and this craving to want to question why things are like they are.
And I mean, there's if you're involved in business and you've got an accountant, they'll be telling you how to fiddle your tax. So people, the more money you have, the more tax you won't have to pay. And they all have offshore accounts, and they're all fiddling the books and keeping their money somewhere where the taxman can't get his hands on it. And that's considered A-OK. But if you or I were not to pay our tax during a year, straight to jail. Bang. Jail. Because you're a nobody trying to take on the system. Whereas a big person taking on the system, oh, all right, no, he's just one of the boys, isn't he? He knows the little wink secrets, and it's like, so this is why things are just so unfair.
Yep.
And I got no respect for power structures and authority. I got no respect for it at all. So people say, why do you go in these buildings exploring? And I say, because I don't respect the people who own them, and I don't respect the institutions behind them. They say, oh, you're an anarchist then. I said, no, I'm not an anarchist. I believe that people should, have property and do things. But this is an abandoned building, and it's been abandoned for 10 years, and they're letting it fall apart. They've let everybody strip the copper out of it. I mean, what the hell does it matter if I go in there? And people, again, like you say, the sheep are policing the sheep. They're like, well, I think it's wrong because I was told it was wrong, and I don't actually have an opinion, so I'm just going to default back to what I was told. Not what I've thought about and worked out and analysed. Is that it's not doing any harm, and we're doing a lot less harm than the people who've actually been before us. Because look at the place.
Yeah.
But people are just like, no, and they're all doing it with the COVID thing now. They all want to just like tell on their neighbours. Dob people in, oh, he's gone out today, and all this sort of crap, and it's like, then you get the police then saying, what are you doing? And I say, well, my job. And they go, I don't believe you, have a COVID fine. And it's like, yeah, but don't you want to see evidence of what I'm doing? And no, tell it to the court. So it's just like slapping COVID fines out there because they can. So they're not being police officers, because police officers are supposed to investigate things.
Yeah. And they're going up for the people, of course.
They don't want to investigate. They want to give you the fine. It's up to you to fight it in a court. And it's like, you shouldn't have to do that. That's not policing. That's wrong.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
basically, they're just a criminal gang going out there slapping fines on people, and they're not interested. So
No, and of
it's just
course
your problem.
someone did some research and found that the people that are issuing the fines, it's actually a private company that's run by ex policemen,
Yeah.
and of course, the irony being that none of these fines are actually legal and none of them can stand up in court. I don't think one fine has actually been passed in court yet. Which just show, you're right. They're just throwing it out there. They're throwing it at people. You got these neighbours that are grassing you up, and the whole COVID thing. Again, I don't know what your opinion on the whole thing is, but it's become this thing where people don't think for themselves. You turn the TV on, it's telling you what to think. You turn the TV off, you get into the car, it's telling you what to think. It's a form of propaganda. It's very North Korea in a way. But it happens not just with COVID, but just throughout society all the time. We go to school. School doesn't teach you how to be clever. It just teaches you how to memorize certain facts. And if you've got a good memory, you'll do fantastic at school. It doesn't teach intelligence though. And this goes through society. How we're taught to essentially just parrot what the narrative says, and nobody has an ability or a willingness, which is important, a willingness to actually think for themselves anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, independent thought will, if you think about what you've learned, you probably won't agree with a lot of it because it's by rote, isn't it? You don't analyze it, you learn it and you repeat it. If you think about what you're being told, I mean, there's a lot of questions coming to mind where you go like, well, actually, I think that's, I don't like that. And, so you're not remembering it exactly as they told it to you. So, of course, if you're in a job and somebody says like, well, we've got to make a decision here. And you go, well, I don't think I'd like to do that because that doesn't agree with me. And it's like, oh, well, that's not what the job's about. And so it's like, if you want to stay in a job, you have to do what you don't like. You have to make decisions that are going to affect other people in a negative way. So they've got you with money because they lure you by the nose. It's like a nose ring, and they pull you round. And if you don't do what you're told, you're not going to get the money. Yep. So, you got to have a house. You may have a family. You've got screaming kids wanting to be fed. You got your family are there, and you're like, well, I've got to do what I'm told. I've got to think what they're telling me to think, and I've got to do what they're telling me to do. Yeah, whether I like it or not, because and maybe one day I'll win the lottery and I'll be able to do what I want. But it's like people are not living. They're not living. They're just existing.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
and the police, what you've just said there is that these police that are enforcing these fines or illegal fines, they're doing is what they were told. And, this is exactly what the Nazis said. I'm just following orders. And because if they don't, then they can't feed their family. Like you just said, they lose their job. And I always wanted to be a history teacher, and I went to university to do it. And then I just had a change of heart. I can't teach history when most of it I don't agree with, and I think it's a bunch of lies. How can I tell the children that how can I not tell the children that Hitler was funded by Prescott Bush, and his forwarding address up until 1938 was New York? Trying to tell them this would have got me sacked straight away. So I couldn't do it. It's not something I could do. But when you get into the system, you're trapped by the system. And like I say, we police each other then, and it's how they all kind of confirm to each other. The scientists will teach off out of a book, and that will confirm what the teachers teach the children, and then that teaches the children authority, so they respect the law, and it's all connected. As we go throughout society, essentially from the centre.
I mean, if you look at some historical characters, like the banking system is like Rothschilds, you've got your Rockefellers, Rothschilds, JP Morgans, and you look at the founding stories behind these things, and they're quite openly horrible stories, how these places got to be. The Rothschilds, and it's not their real name, they're called the Bauers. And so it's like the Germans, they don't want you knowing they're German because you won't like them. And it's like, well, so they hid their names, so they called them the Rothschilds instead, the Red Shield. Yeah, but they got started because one of their early, chaps about 1900. It was the First World War, and he ran into the stock exchange and said, "Oh, I've just heard that they've been defeated in France," and everyone sold their stocks right really low. He bought them up, and then it came through that actually no, they've just won the war in France, and everybody's like, "Oh, we just sold our stocks." Perfectly legal to have lied in order to make money off everyone else. Now, the thing is, you see, in that world, it's considered okay to shit on people, okay to destroy countries, and wipe things out with money, and use money as a weapon. Yeah. So he wasn't pulled to one side and kicked the shit out of, and literally, chop his hands off for being a complete wanker who just taken everyone's money off him. No, he was hailed as a hero and allowed to become one of the biggest bankers in the world. Now that is why society is fucked.
Yeah.
I think. There's a classic example.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it was the Battle of Waterloo that they did that on. They claimed that Wellington had lost a couple of days before the actual battle, and of course, as you say, what happens then is he rises to the top, and all the families that were destroyed, all the businesses that were destroyed, they don't care, and it's just the plaything. And I think it was another Rothschild that said there are two ways to control a nation, and that's by the sword or by debt. And of course, nowadays you can't necessarily kill people as they used to in the old days. So the new modern slavery is through debt. You get a mortgage, you get a credit card, and then you have to work 50, 60 hours a week if you're lucky to actually have a job. And you become a slave to the system. No matter how much you might rebel against it, you need it in order to survive. And then you don't have time to actually research because you get home, you've done a 10-hour day, you're absolutely knackered. You just want to veg in front of the telly, you go to sleep, you do it all again. And no one actually has the energy or the time or the patience to actually look around them and realise the prison that they're in.
And I mean, I think that's why I was so heavily invested in like crop circles, because it's a distraction away from the bullshit.
Yeah.
It's something that kind of shows people something that's going on inside subconsciously, because I think if we're picking up the idea, these shapes and things like that, then a lot of other people probably are as well. And when they see those designs, it kind of triggers them, and they think, oh, I've got to get down there and check this out. I've got to go to these fields and have a look and try and connect with that energy. And I think it's because a lot of people are very disillusioned right now, and have been for quite a long time. Religions don't seem to kind of really provide decent answers, and everyone's told that they're not allowed to, talk to the dead, or not allowed to mess around with magic, and it's all bollocks. It's all bollocks. All of that stuff's bollocks. But money's good. And debt is good, and buying this new soap powder is good, and you're told all these things are great, and have a vaccination. A vaccination will help you. Well, how the hell did they make a vaccination for the COVID virus? Now, there's a couple of theories on this one, but I know a professor from Harvard was interviewed recently, and he said, "Look, I've been a vaccine creator, for many years. I mean, we spend like 15, 20 years building these things. There's no way we can build one to deal with COVID in such a short time." He said, "We can't even get the flu right, and we've been at that for donkey's years." He said, "So there's no way that in a short space of time this thing can work. It can't work. They can't create it. And if they do, I would suggest," he said, "that there's probably some sort of political newspeak going on, because it's not going to be effective."
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I actually called it the modern day Cold War, essentially. Remember we had Russia releasing their Sputnik vaccine or whatever they called it, and then just before the UK released theirs, and then it was a race in America to release. Of course, they held back on theirs because they wanted to make it look like it was Biden's great idea. It was nothing to do with Trump, to shit on Trump a little bit more. And then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had no vaccine. And then in a week, we had like 3 vaccines that we could choose from, like pick and mix. You see these people say, "I've had the AstraZeneca." "Oh, well, I've had the Pfizer." It's like, well, it's like I've gone out and brought a Jaguar. "Oh, well, I've got a Mercedes." And it's like this kind of, you've got to choice of what vaccine you're going to have is utterly ridiculous. And as you say, the fact that they could get one so quick again is an absolute joke. And you can find the paperwork that tells you that they're still in the trial phase up until 2023. So we've got 2 more years of this. So essentially, the people having it are human guinea pigs for the next 2 years while they go through safety testing. They then tell you that pregnant women can't have it, children can't have it, you can't drink alcohol for a week after having it, and you can still pass it on. you can still
pass it on. So what's the point? What's the point of the vaccine in the first place? Because it's like, oh, you can travel abroad because you won't get it if you travel abroad, but you can pass it on. So hang on, what's all this business about needing to have a vaccine passport to go abroad then? Because even if you've had the vaccine, you can be a carrier that will pass it on. Yeah. So all you're doing is effectively protecting yourself. You're not protecting anybody else. So what does it matter if you've had the vaccine or not?
Yeah.
If I want to travel abroad and make myself at risk, that's my decision, because I could be infecting them abroad by going there. So why do you need to have a passport? Now that is some fucking, excuse me, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, crack on.
Okay, I'm not sure. That's some flipping backwards logic there. Yeah. That's like I'm just trying to think of an example that would kind of be like, I'm saying you've got to have an MOT on your car to prove it's safe, and then it's not valid 1 day after you've had the MOT. It's a sort of reverse logic. It's like, well, hang on, I've just had an MOT that says it's safe. But if you get into an accident and they find that one of the tyres is a bit low, and you go, well, I've just driven from Scotland. It doesn't matter. The tyre was low. You broke the law. Yeah, but what about the MOT? Doesn't matter. MOT's not valid. It's like, really? So what? If I go abroad and I've got this piece of paper, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's just more control.
That's it. Yeah.
So they can identify, I think this is what it is, they can identify who are the good sheep and who are the rebels. Yep. And that's what this is about. It's about rebels won't be allowed to travel. Rebels won't be allowed to have a job. Rebels can live in the gutter, because now we've got a way of identifying rebels, because they won't take the water vaccine that we're giving them. Yeah? And it's like, really? Yeah.
I think the worrying thing is, of course, is you've had to have vaccination passports for things like yellow fever, and if you go to particular countries. But this is an argument that people are actually using in favour of them. Oh well, you've always had to have vaccine passports to go to certain countries, but that's absolutely fine. But you've never had to have a vaccine passport to go and watch the football, or to go and watch your favourite band in a concert, or to go for a pint. So that's a different level of control, and I cannot believe every time I see people that are agreeing with this tyranny, the amount of people that are for it, and it boggles my mind, and I try and step away from it because it's so depressing. It really brings me down to see the way we're going, and I fear for my young boy and the world that he's going to grow up in. You see all these children testing themselves today and stuff, and you just think, are we being had? Are we being blackmailed essentially to have our freedom back? And these people that say, yeah, I'm going to have the jab. I want the jab because I want to go on holiday. I want the jab because I want to go to the football. It's like, well, hang on, so no one's actually said you want the jab because you're scared or you want to be healthy. Not one person I know has said that they're having the jab for their own health, for their own well-being. They're having it to get back to normal.
It's like they want to get back in the Matrix. That's it. It's like, they've come out of the Matrix now, and the Matrix is this like grey world where the food don't taste very good, and and it's like that guy. He goes. If I get you, Neo, I want you to put me back in, and I want you to make me rich, and I don't want to remember anything. Yeah, and this is what people are like. I mean, people are pretty shallow. They would stab their neighbours in the back over a pay rise, or tickets to a football game. You know what I mean? It's like, because that means they're better. They've achieved something, and it's like morals in society have gone out of the window. I think It's just like dog eat dog these days. It's like
Yeah, and it's this. The problem is, it's this kind of society that we've been bred where we need to always be better than our neighbour, and it's this carrot that's dangled. And it's when can you actually sit down and think, I've won? I've won the game of life, because you go to school. Oh, now you've got to go to college. Okay, done that. Well, no, now you've got to go to uni. Okay, done that. Got in a shitload of debt for it as well, but fine, I've done that. Okay, now you got to get a job. Right, now you got to get a promotion. Now you got to get married. And it's this competition. And is it, I don't know, is it when you're on your deathbed taking your last breath that you think, what was that all about? Nobody takes the time to just sit down, reflect on what they are lucky enough to have, maybe, and just think this isn't a competition. It isn't a game. Have what I have. Without that, what I said earlier, people are told to be appreciative of what they've got. But what I'm trying to say is that people always think they need more. And I guess it's money. It's money that's done this, but it is also the society that we live in. And your neighbour's got a new car. I want a new car. And it's a horrible way to live for me. It's because when do people when do you win? When is life complete?
I mean, once people wake up to the idea that banks can just invent money, they can just print it, just put extra zeros on the end, and any money you loan, they automatically get back in the bank. It's created for the bank, so they're lending you money that they've just had inserted into their account. And it's people just don't understand that all this borrowing devalues the money. So if that's why your house will get more expensive, because people's value of their money is less, so they have to earn more, and then things devalue. So it means to buy that house, it would have cost £200,000, but in 10 years' time it'll cost £300,000. Well, it's not because it's become it's become a better house made out of gold. It's that the money's worth less. So if you've got money in the bank, it's devaluing. If you've got money under the bed, it's devaluing, because everyone's spending money and this fake money system. And it's like, hello, fake money system. There's no gold to back it up. There's nothing to back it up. It's all promises on paper. Promise of money. Promise to bear. Promise, right? Well, it's like, I could promise all sorts of things, but I'm not going to come up with it. And if I go to the bank and say, look, I want my gold, they're going to go, well, it doesn't actually exist, sir. It's just nice wording. It's like, so you promised a lie then. So the whole banking system is based on a lie. I promised to pay the bearer on demand. It's like, well, all right, then pay me. I want it in gold. I don't want it as paper. I want it as gold. No, can't do that. It doesn't really exist.
No, and of course, if you go into the bank and ask for your money, 9 times out of 10 they won't be able to give it you, because there's not enough money in the world to exist. They're creating this digital currency.
They ask you, why do you want your money? You have to give them good excuses why, and they go, oh well, we'll have to specially order it in, and they make it as hard as possible. They delay you, and then if you ask for a certain amount over, I think it's £10,000. If you ask for £10,000 in cash, that's reported to the special branch. They want to know why you, and the special branch will look into your business. Why does he want 10 grand in cash? So maybe I want to buy a boat or a plane, and maybe I want to do that. And they're like, oh, but you should do that digitally so we can watch what you're doing. If you spend small amounts, you never trigger the alarms. But if you spend 10,000 or transfer 10,000, unless you're in the gold club, of billionaires who are doing it all the time, they want to know 10 grand. He's a poor person. Why is he playing around with 10 grand? He's meant to be poor. Why? Yeah. Why is he doing it? So you've got the secret police then on your case, asking what you're up to.
That's right. Yeah.
Show us your ID. Show us your vaccine card. You're not allowed to take your money out of your bank. You're not allowed to go abroad. No, you can't travel, sir, because you're a danger to society. Even though if we gave you the vaccine, you can still spread the disease. I say, come.
Yeah, no, what you touched on there is, of course, the cashless society, which they're desperate to bring in. And back when this started, I've always said I'm not scared of this virus. So I've got a 99.97% survival rate or whatever it is. And the average person that dies, the age is 82, and I'm a long way off that. So I've always just been more scared of the response to the virus. And one of those things that many people have called from the start was cashless society. And we saw this where shops were encouraging people to pay by card. Shops were encouraging, they upped it from £30 to a £45 contactless. They're now talking about making it £100 contactless. And of course, because if you're spending digitally, they can control you more. They can see everything you're doing. Everything you earn is taxed. There's no more little backhanders from your mate because you've fixed his fence on a Saturday. There's no fiver under the pillow of your son because he's lost his first tooth from the tooth fairy. There's nothing like that. Everything is controlled digitally. You shop online, so they can see what you're doing, they can see what you're buying, hence the eradication of the high street essentially over the past 10 years. And all this is linked, in my opinion, to a cashless society, which then comes on to the credit score system and universal income, which is where we're at now, isn't it? You know, they're trying to roll out this universal basic income, and that means everyone's reliant on the state. Oh, you went to a protest on Saturday, so we're going to take 10% of your universal income off you this month. Or you were caught speeding the other day, so we're going to take off £100 from your basic income. And that's a score system, is it? It's a credit system, like in China.
Yeah, and I mean, you got cameras we never asked for being stuck up on all the motorways. And it's like every couple of miles, you know, like automatic speed cameras. I get tickets through all the time because I ain't slowing down and I ain't respecting cameras. I mean, you know, no, just go straight in the bin, you know. And it's like, you want to take me to court, you know. But it doesn't happen, you know, because I mean, there's some of us out there. We know that these systems, because I mean, I worked in the civil service in debt recovery for customs and excise, and I know that they just can't cope. What they rely on with all these speed cameras and all these systems is compliant sheep.
Yep.
Who'll go, oh, well, I better pay it because if I don't, I'll get more points, and then I won't have my car, and I won't be able to go to work, and I won't be able to earn money, and I won't have television, I won't have broadband, and I won't have food, and so they it's just like it's a head fuck, basically. It's a head fuck. What you got to do is you got to say, I'm going to do what I want to do because they fucking do what they want to do, you know. So I'm going to do what I want to do, and then I think you kind of like free yourself up of the bonds of the prison without walls that we live in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're free to do what they allow you to do. Well, that's not freedom, is it? You know, no. It's not real freedom. It's like you can do this, but you can't do that. You can't do that. I mean, we've only just recently allowed like gay people to not be arrested for having sex. You know what I mean? I mean, this is like this is classed as like, you know, amazing now, but like you're talking only about, you know, 30, 40 years ago, you could be arrested and chucked in a jail cell and given a shitty life. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and it's we always think we're at the cutting edge of technology, we're at the cutting edge of evolution, but you know what you've just mentioned there about the gay rights and stuff like that, and we obviously have apartheid because of someone's colour of their skin, and we're now going into a world where we have a new apartheid, and that's going to be the vaxxed and the unvaxxed. I believe, you know, there's going to be a two-tier society where there'll be restaurants that are only for the unvaxxed, or there'll be a cinema night where only the unvaxxed can go on a Wednesday night or something. I think that's a society we're going into now, and it's backwards, isn't it? I know you mentioned that word earlier. It's just completely backwards.
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to separate out the compliant with the non-compliant. They do it through the schools. It's they that will accept, you know, what they're being told and do it back and not complain about it, you know. And it's like, so, of course, in schools, there's certain things that are good to know, but it's not necessary for everybody to know everything you're taught in school in order to succeed. You know, there are things you can do in life that probably don't require, you know, many of the things that, you know, are taught in school. So it's not for everybody. And the funny thing is with school is it's kind of like, it doesn't matter who you are and what you're good at or what you're bad at. You got to do this whether you like it or not. Yeah. So they brainwash them from a young age, and they say, right, you know, you're going to be a round peg in a square hole whether you like it or not. Yeah, and you say, but I'm good at this. It doesn't matter. You got to do all this first before you can be allowed to do the thing you like. So again, brainwashing. You got to work doing what you don't want to do to get a little bit of what you do like wanting to do. Yeah, so it's like these little nugget, and eventually I think it takes people's spirit away, and it takes their kind of, you know, will and, you know, excitement to sort of live a full life. And a lot of people go through schooling, you know, and they say, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they're like, well, I don't know. And it's like, well, you can do this then. And it's like, well, I don't really want to do that. But this is what will be a job for you, so you will do it. And you've got to get these qualifications to do it. So they map you out, you know, like into something you don't really want to do. And then you spend half your life like thinking, geez, I wish I wasn't doing this. And it's like, you know, how do I get out of this? So it's like, nah.
No, it's
I think people and land rights in the UK is half the thing to do with it as well. Like, the haves have all the land, and we're not allowed to build on the land, and we're not allowed to have our little house and build our house. It's got to be like, gotta be approved,
yeah,
gotta be given permission to do it, unless you're the Queen or the MOD or the Church, in which case you always get permission for everything you want, and it's like, but if it's you or me, no, we're not building our little house in a little part of the land because we don't own the land. You see, we live, it's almost like as if we're levitating. I think it's like we're levitating. Like, I'm not really here sitting on the ground now. I'm levitating off the ground because I don't own it. So I'm not allowed to be on this. Yeah, I'm not allowed to be on this because I don't have a right. I have a right to rent. I have a right to work. I have a right to be taxed. I have a right to be told laws that I didn't agree to. Yeah, and live their life their way. And if I rebel, I take all that away from you, and we'll put you in jail.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. And you talk about the school, and you're pigeonholed from a young age. I mean, I know 5-6-year-olds take tests now, and if you fail as a 6-year-old, that's it. That sticks with you then for the next 5 years. It dictates what classes you're in. Then you take another test, but of course, because you've been in quite a lower class for those 5 years, they've never really expected any more from you. So you then carry that stigma with you throughout school. And how many people, adults, who I'm a drummer, and I've been in bands for most of my life, but I've never really had the money or the time to follow it through as much as I'd like to, because I'm too busy working all week, and I'm too busy trying to fit into society, I guess. And how many people have these talents, artists, or whether that be painting or music or acting, or these abilities that they never really have a chance to express because they're penned into this system, this matrix, and they're just forced to work for a living in a job that they hate, they despise, and they don't have the money to fund their passion. And then they wither and die, and that's another lost talent, essentially.
Yeah, I think I think people can kind of convince themselves they're happy with things, and they kind of they see joy in their families, and they can laugh at a TV program and all that. But I mean, I think everyone kind of knows that we're part of a machine, and it's somebody else owns the machine. And we're a cog, and if that cog breaks, they just put another cog in its place. The nurses don't feel very loved, do they? People who work in lots of jobs, they don't get paid properly, and you get taxed through the nose. I mean, we're one of the most heavily taxed countries in Europe. Petrol prices, so they don't want you traveling around. Public transport, most expensive in Europe. It's like you got companies like BT, who've charged so much money for people to make phone calls, which in other countries are practically free, and it's made BT one of the most rich companies in the world. They buy out other countries' phone companies now because they're so rich. Who can afford to fly on a British Airways aircraft? Not many people I know, because it's it's one of the most expensive aircraft. It's everything in the UK is a rip-off. We pay more for our cars, we pay more for our technology. It's like everything that is about this country is about screwing people to the ground, whilst then claiming it's a wonderful democracy and we've got democratic rule. Have we really? I mean, they didn't like the result of Brexit, right? Even though I think it was a great thing for the country, these elites and rulers, they did not like what happened, because they were trying to set it up so it was like, we're in now for good, and they got their asses kicked. Had they known that was going to happen, they would never have given us the vote. That really backfired. And I mean, I see things like that as like a ray of light. It's like people saying, we've had enough, we're not taking this shit anymore. And there needs to be a lot more of that in society. There need to be a lot more people saying, what is this speeding ticket? I never asked for a speed camera, right? I never asked for these speed cameras, right? And I'm not accepting it,
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Quite a good, nice way to end it, actually. I'd love to get you back on
Yeah,
because I
end
feel
it.
like we
Let's do it, baby.
joint pact.
Depression. No.
Um,
I'm quite happy most of the time when I haven't got trolls like just,
no, but
pulling me round.
the thing is, when you sit and talk about this for an hour, it can get you down. So, I mean, I'd love to get you back on, and we can talk. Maybe the other side, the flip side, what we just touched on there about what people can do to empower themselves and a way of trying to break free of this. Because although it's quite depressing, there are things that you can do on a personal level and as a collective. There are things you can do to break free of this prison. But thank you for coming on. It was a bit of a mess at the start trying to find your link and stuff.
No, it's fine. Absolutely happy to come on. And yeah, I don't know what happened with that, but I mean, I was like looking out. Anyway, I'll give you my telephone number. So that's a highly classified secret, that one. So
Okay, yeah.
you can get in touch with us then.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and then I'll get you back on in a month or so,
Okay.
and we'll continue because I feel like we could talk for another hour easily.
I'm
yeah,
known for my 10-hour continuous live streams, actually. So I think it's a good chance you could get me talking for a lot longer than that. Yeah.
Brilliant, great. I look forward to it. So thank you very much for coming on.
All the best.
Been a
I
pleasure.
shouldn't do that really because that's a salute is like a military
authority.
thing, and
Yeah,
authority. No, I should do this nanu. Right, that's what I normally do is nanu.
Brilliant. Thank you
all the
very
best.
much, Matthew.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Right, so that was showing Matthew there. Finally, he managed to get on, and I'm really glad he did. It was an interesting chat. Thank you to everyone that's joined in and commented. Really appreciate your support. For those that are here for the first time, if you've come on to watch Matthew, then please head on to Facebook and follow the Collective Conspiracy Show. You'll be able to find all of our previous videos on there and any upcoming ones that we do. We air every other Monday. So the next show we're doing is 2 weeks today on the 22nd, and I'm going to have Andrew Johnson on, and we're going to be discussing Pizzagate and the elite paedophile ring that seems to have infiltrated Hollywood. It's infiltrated the BBC here in the UK, and it's infiltrated most of the elite around the world, it would seem. So we're going to discuss that as well. And then the week after, I'm going to have David Oast on to discuss reverse speech, which I mentioned at the start. So that should be really good, discussing reverse speech and the psychology behind that. And it's a relatively not new phenomena, but not many people know about it. So I'm really pleased to be able to bring his research to the forefront. So thank you everyone for joining in. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your week. And we look forward to better times once this bullshit ends, I suppose. But until then, take care and thank you very much.